My favorite compliment is obviously Big Daddy.
Just the name.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe that.
No. Yeah, that'd be weird. That'd be weird. Random girl comes on the street. Hey, Big Daddy. No, thank you. No, thank you. I am not your father. That's weird.
Agreed.
Hey, what's happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Proclivity podcast. I tried changing it up there. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm. Like that.
Perfect. My name is Joel Cochran. I'm the life coach here at Proclivity, also the host. And then we got Emily Rodella. We just picked her off the street. It's the first time that she's not been on the show. I'm just kidding. She's an incredible nutrition coach, you guys. The best of the best. And she's also the co-host. And we're here today to be able to bring you information to help you live a healthier and happier life. It's our main gig here at Proclivity. We love building a community of people who are so freaking stoked to be alive. And we all come together and we all do great things like this podcast. So we're going to dive into it today. Emily, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about how to hold your boundary.
Why is that important?
It's important for our health and happiness. If you want to make time for the gym, make time for yourself, slow down, be calm, confident, consistent, we need to have boundaries.
Right. And what's interesting about boundaries, you guys, and what we're going to cover today is I want to make sure that we're clear so you know whether you're going to skip this podcast right now or not. Okay. We're going to talk about boundaries. What does it usually sound like in your day to day? When people talk about boundaries, what does it usually sound like? We're going to talk about why do we set boundaries, which is what Emily touched on just a little bit here. And then I want to actually talk about our perceived reality when it comes to boundaries. Like, how do we perceive boundaries when people set boundaries, and when we set boundaries? How is that perceived? And then we're going to really twist your mind on how to be able to set and hold these boundaries, because a lot of us get into the state that I tried to set this boundary, it didn't work, and I'm still in the same place I was before. Well, we need to go a couple layers deeper, you guys, of why we're not upholding our boundaries. So that's what it's going to be. We're going to roll through this super quick. And the reason is because Emily and I and Gia had a very long conversation about anxious attachments, secure attachments, and avoidant attachment. And that will be coming up soon in a podcast. We talked for what, an hour?
Maybe.
It was good.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about boundaries. So let's dive in. So let's start off with boundaries itself in the language. We know how important language is for us here at Proclivity. So what are some of the sayings that people have when it comes to boundaries?
I need to set better boundaries. I need, they're pushing my boundaries. I don't have boundaries. Those are the things that come to mind for me.
Yeah. And how about like, it's finally time to draw the line, right? No, this is my non-negotiable.
I need to say no.
Learning to say no to others, standing up for yourself. Like we have these sayings like, it's time for you to stand up for yourself. Draw the line.
Right.
That's a non-negotiable. How does that sound to you? What's the first like feelings that you get when I start saying those things?
A little uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, how come? Because
standing up for myself, when you say it like that, that makes me think of perhaps getting into conflict with someone.
And when you think of conflict, do you feel tight? Do you feel light? Do you feel heavy?
Tight.
So no wonder we don't want to hold a boundary
Mm-hmm.
if we feel like it's going to be conflicting and it's going to bring up tension. No one wants to carry tension. The body doesn't want to carry tension. We don't want to carry tension. So just starting off of understanding, guys, the way that we say things are going to create a feeling within the body. And so if we're trying to make a change and it feels tight instead of light, good luck making that change. Maybe you can grit your teeth for a while and try to hold that boundary, but it'll only last so long because it doesn't feel light, doesn't feel open, doesn't feel expansive. So let's move on to to continuing to dive into this perception of boundaries. You already talked about, like, hey, there's some conflict in boundaries. When we're setting boundaries, what's the perception that it might have to the other person when we're setting boundaries?
Like my perception of me setting a boundary, right?
So you're setting a boundary to me. How's it going to feel for me?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So it could come across as being aggressive, um, and feeling harsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we set boundaries and we're saying things like, I'm standing up for myself, I'm looking for an attacker. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for an offense. For, I have to stand up for myself, meaning against something. And so it can become off very aggressive, very unflexible, and even one sided.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my boundary, do not cross. Whoa. We were talking earlier about relationships and how agreements are so vital. Hey, here's my agreement with you. An agreement is two-sided. We are deciding together to make this agreement. Now, some of you guys may be thinking, well, what happens when they continue to break that agreement? I need to set a boundary. Cool. Then how do we set boundaries? How do we set boundaries? This is what we're going to dive into and spend the rest of our time, guys, because this is what you really want to understand. Because when we set healthy boundaries, what's going to happen, Emily? If we set healthy boundaries, what happens?
We're going to accomplish our goals and be happy.
Cool. Are we going to feel tighter or lighter?
Lighter, more expansive. We're going to have our cup full so we can give to others.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Yet, if we're starting off setting a boundary and it already feels aggressive, unflexible, and one sided, then we're already starting in a tight place because we feel like we have to stand up for ourselves against something. And so there's already tension before I even try to get to that space of lightness. So, how do we set a boundary and start light? Do you want to give the analogy? Or you want me to give it?
You give it. You're better at it.
You want me to give the analogy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So, when it comes to the analogy of boundaries, guys, usually we see it as, say, like a fence, or we'll even say like a barbed wire fence. I'm going to set up this fence line to be able to keep those things that I don't want out. It's going to protect this space. Now, I go and work out on a ranch. My family had horses. And when it comes to being in a ranch with cattle, we set up a perimeter to allow the cows to be able to be inside a given space. And the reason that you have cattle guards and cattle gates is because we want to keep them in the space. And these cows are, anywhere from 600 to 1,000 plus pounds. If they really wanted to get through some barbed wire fence, they get through some barbed wire fence. But when it comes to setting boundaries, we tend to think, oh, I'm the cattle and I want to stay away from the predators, the wolves, the coyotes, or the bears, whatever you want to call them. Yet here's the thing, guys. A wolf or coyote can get through a barbed wire fence, no problem. They literally can hop right over it. No big deal. But when a wolf or coyote comes into a herd of cattle, they stand zero chance because the herd is too strong and too stable. Yet what happens if the cattle gate is open? Then the cows start getting out. And when they get out, excuse me, when they get out, they now start spreading apart. So now it's actually dangerous because they come out of the area that they were safe in. So, my point here, guys, is that our boundaries aren't set to keep others out, it's to keep us in. Because when you go out, you go into danger. So, when it comes to boundaries, you can always invite the wolf in. You can always invite the coyote in because the herd is strong. What you have within your boundaries is strong. They can't hurt you there. It's too strong. It's when you allow yourself to go outside your boundary that things start getting real, real dangerous. So, with that analogy, Emily, how do we start shifting and changing to creating that type of boundary thought?
Yeah. So for me, it was in the language of instead of saying, oh, I'm going to stand up for myself, it's, oh, no, I'm going to stand up to myself. Because when you think about it, when you're saying no or you're holding a boundary, it's you, right? Because you have that tension within yourself to want to say yes to whether it be people pleasing or they're persistent. And you want to resolve the conflict. It's not standing up to them; it's standing up to you in that resistance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. What other techniques do we have for them?
Yeah. So taking a look at your language. So on the same idea of language is firm talk. We want to move more towards firm talk and minimize soft talk. So soft talk being things like, well, I might be able to do that. Maybe. I kind of want this. I should probably do that. Right. So the maybes kind of want to probably sort of all of those soft languages is going to put you in the middle in a place not only for yourself but for the other person at a spot where it's confusing. It's not clear. And so we
Mm-hmm.
want to start having firm talk like, no, this is what I want and get very specific. And that may be
Mm-hmm.
hard at first, especially that was for me. Cause I'm like, well, wait, I'm so used to the soft talk and giving in to others. What do I want? But we have to start somewhere and we want to start getting more firm with our language. So removing soft talk is like one of the first steps.
And it can be hard to make this shift to firm talk, you guys. And it takes practice,
Mm-hmm.
it takes repetition. Yet I have a saying: no and yes are complete sentences. I learned this incredible lesson from my nephew when we were playing and wrestling around. And there was something I was doing that he didn't like. And he looked me right in the eyes and he said, no, I don't like that. And I have taken that into my business life, my professional life, my personal life. When somebody does something, I breathe. And if I go, I don't like that, I literally tell them, no, I don't like that. And it stops people dead in their tracks when you just tell somebody, I don't like that. And you don't have to answer because or why. If it doesn't feel right in your body, you can say no. And if they get offended because you say no, you are not responsible for their emotions. They are offending themselves. Why? Because maybe they did say something that was offensive. Maybe there is some self doubt that they have. Maybe they are scared. Good, good. I encourage you to be scared. What are you going to do with it? because each time that I fall to it and I allow you to pull me, or I allow myself, excuse me, to go outside of my boundaries because I feel sorry for you, I expose myself. This is where the bitterness starts coming in, and the finger pointing starts coming in, resentment starts coming in. You pulled me out of my comfort zone. Hold on. It is you standing up to you, not for you. When that feeling comes in and goes, well, I don't want to upset them, you're only talking to yourself. You're not talking to anybody else. Are you willing to stand up to you at that point? Yes or no? Yes or no? And if you're not, then it is time for your self-work to recognize, that why didn't I just say, no, I don't like that? Or come on in. You can come into my boundaries. I invite you here because I'm safe here. Either or.
What
Either
would be an
or.
example of that, Joel?
In terms of the
Inviting people
breaking.
into your boundary.
Yeah, totally. A perfect example. My mother and I ended up having a really deep sit down conversation about 3 years ago. And I read her a letter. And I set a boundary to myself that I would not engage in politics. It was something that really put a lot of stress on our relationship, and something that I recognized. Each time I took the bait and I walked out of my boundaries because she started talking about something that I didn't necessarily agree on, we ended up in a big fight, and it was dangerous for the both of us. So my invitation to my mother was, you're more than welcome to talk about politics, yet I will not engage. And so when politics got brought up, what did I do, Emily?
Not engage.
Not engage. I stayed in my boundaries. And the wolf was out there, not comparing my mom to a wolf like she's bad, but was out there going like, no, come on, come on, come on. And I just went, nope, hey, wolf, you're more than welcome to come in this space. And in this space is not about politics. And I'll just be patient and I'll wait. And guess what? She would sooner or later stop talking, change the subject. Now what happened? She changed the subject and came into my boundaries. Cool, you want to talk about school? Great, let's talk about school. Oh, you want to talk about Oliver? Great, let's talk about Oliver. And the more times I stood up to myself and I didn't go outside my boundaries, the more they felt comfortable inside of mine. Mm-hmm. Because I wasn't aggressive and I wasn't resentful and I wasn't negative. They go, wow, this is actually a really nice space. And I go, it is, isn't it? Come on in, because I feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Does that land?
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome, Emily. Thank you for asking. One of the things that's going to hold you back from setting up your boundaries, standing up to yourself, is going to be valuing yourself. This is where it usually gets, it's not too hard for me to coach somebody through and saying, hey, okay, well, let's talk about the boundaries, and you get it, you understand, right? You don't go out of yours. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. What is that boundary for yourself? Not for someone else, but for yourself. What is that boundary? Okay, my boundary is going to be this. It's when the action happens. Do you value yourself enough? Are you comfortable enough with yourself? Are you safe enough with yourself that you aren't going to go outside that boundary with your kid, with your husband, with your wife, with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend? Are you going to stand firm and go, I'm safe right here in this boundary, and I'm going to stay here? And that's going to shake some people, and they're going to bark and howl right outside that boundary. They're going to make a scene because they want you to come out. They want to spook you right out of that boundary, because they know if they can spook you out, they got you. Because one cow all by itself with a pack of wolves, goner. But a cow with a herd of 50, 100, 500, the wolf has no way of being able to get a cow. It get trampled over in a second, be dead.
And I think the hard part for people in total, like first and foremost, what you just said, but also like when that happens, I used to think like, oh, it's going to be aggressive no matter what. So shifting my perspective on, oh no, I can still be firm and that's still nice, right? That's standing up for me. And I always thought it had to be an aggressive way. And so shifting that perspective of like, no, I can hold my boundaries and we still be cordial and friends. And so that helped me a lot too. And yeah, question yourself of like, why is it hard for me to say no or to hold that boundary? And because I know a lot of people would be like, well, what do I say in that moment when they are pushing me? And again, Joel said no is complete sentence, which I know can be difficult at first if you're not used to that.
Right.
But I challenge you, everyone, to be brave enough to try it out, even if it's like with little things first.
If you guys have kids, just watch your kids. Watch how they respond. If they don't like something, they just tell you straight up. And watch how you respond to it. You usually direct, like, oh, okay, bud, we can change that. Well, all of a sudden we become adults, prefrontal cortex takes over, and we're too worried about what they're going to think about us. We should be worried about what we think about us. And if that person isn't willing to accept you exactly how you are, start figuring out different people to be around. If it's a friend, if it's a girlfriend, if it's a boyfriend, if they can't look at you the way Niner looks at Gia and goes, I could just stare at you all day long. Because they adore the person that you are. They adore the person that you are because why, Emily? This is a test. Let's see what she says. Oh, she's going to get real nervous. This is great.
Because they accept you the way you are. I'm not sure.
Yes, because they accept themselves exactly the way they are.
Correct.
When you accept yourselves, it makes it so much easier to accept the person across the table. You can just look at that person and go, all the things, the imperfections, the ups, the downs, I receive it all. And that's what you want in a relationship with mom, with dad, with husband, with wife. That's what you want. Do we cover
Agreed. I believe so. Well, and I'll add one more thing. And if
Please
you're having trouble of like knowing what boundaries to set, what really helped me too was going back to an exercise that we do with our clients is set like, what is an ideal day for you? What do you value? What do you want to get done in a day? And write that out and think like, this is what I want. And how can I start setting boundaries and being firm in that? It's very helpful because sometimes we can like think about like, well, yeah, I want to work out, but I know I have too much work. I have the kids. Like, well, how can we make that happen?
Right.
And how do we communicate that with the people who need that communication with? And so writing out your ideal day, your values, that's a really other good place to start.
I love it. How do you know where to go if you don't got a target? Got to make sure you get the targets. Most important part of any goal. Actually know where you're shooting. This is great. How do you feel?
I feel complete.
as do I.
Good.
Gia is also complete, even though she can't hear us. Gia's in the background, making sure we're sounding good, looking good. All right, you guys. Episode 128 in the books. We're going to be coming hot at you, 129. And you know what? Maybe we're going to dive into some anxious attachments. If you don't know what anxious attachments is, well, look it up.
Exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Until you hear us or see us again.
Best day ever.
Best day ever. Emily, turkey jerky or beef jerky?
Beef
It's
jerky.
just all day.
No
Put the
brainer.
reviews. Put the reviews in. You guys know what to say. 5-star beef jerky. We'll see you next time.
See ya.